So we're going to check out this guy. I don't actually know anything about this guy. So anyone who's a fan of him who wants to comment, you don't know anything about him, you're right. I mean, I don't know anything about him. Richard Cooper is his name. And I'm just going to take a look at his arguments. Okay, he says how to fix social anxiety. So I am a therapist, and I have clients with social anxiety. Social anxiety can interact with other forms of anxiety, and it always basically does, but it is sort of a specific type of anxiety because it's anxiety that's triggered by social interactions or anticipation of social interactions or thinking about how you might be perceived. The name of the game with anxiety, and I'm going to see what this guy says, I'm curious, but the name of the game with anxiety is exposure. And it's like the worst thing you never want to hear it because it's like, oh, great, okay, I just have to suffer, basically. But you do have to expose yourself to your triggers in a healthy way. You don't just want to throw yourself in, but you have to expose yourself to your triggers to be able to build what's called distress tolerance. The ability to tolerate distress, stress, anxiety, and you do have to expose yourself to triggers and then basically physiologically learn with your body, not just your mind, but with your body learn, okay, my anxiety goes down ultimately. So if I was anxious about streaming, I need to do it, but I need to make an environment for myself where the triggers are manageable. I need it to not be an experience that's going to exacerbate and reinforce the anxiety. But yeah, you want to go into the thing, expose yourself to the stress, make it manageable for yourself, and then you physiologically learn, oh, the anxiety goes away, it goes down, it's all good. Here, let's check it out.
I always tell guys, if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room. Get in a better room.
Got a crazy video for you today.
She's not yours, it's just your turn. A woman should be... What's up, my brothers from another mother? Listen, in this video, I want to talk about anxiety. There's a lot of gentlemen that reach out to me, either by DMs or messages, or they'll even call in on the Before the Trainwreck series and ask about something that they're anxious about that's holding them back in life. And it's a really, really scary place to be when you have anxiety over something. I've had it myself many times in my life. I mean, I've talked about my scars before. I had anxiety even as a kid.
Wow.
Wanted to take my shirt off at the beach. I remember there was a few times where...
I'm assuming he's talking about experience with self-harm, and that's very, very brave of him to disclose that. Good for him being open about that. Self-harm is something a lot of people deal with. Yeah, I don't know for a fact that that's what he's talking about, but that's certainly what it seems like he's implying. And good for him talking about that.
The first thing, probably the most important...
He's so much more laid back than Tate, which is really kind of important. Like, Tate was so emotional. And I think it's good to express your emotions, but when you're trying to make an argument in a video about a subject that's complicated and you're making a complicated argument, like, it doesn't really help to be completely emotional. And I think Tate tries to succeed with the power of his emotion specifically. And I don't think he would admit that or realize that. But yeah, this guy's at least like laid back and has himself in order. Maybe it's because he's driving.
The first thing, probably the most important thing to do is stop doing anything that reinforces that social anxiety. Whatever narrative it is that you have in your head that you think should be holding you back or keeping you from, greatness, if I can put it that way, get rid of it. If it's a blog that you subscribe to, a subreddit, a YouTube channel, anything that reinforces your social anxiety that says, you're a loser, you're always going to be a loser, and here's why we all need to hang out and be losers together.
That's great advice. That is great advice. It sounds like he's telling people to stop, doing the red pill shit, which is interesting, because I don't know if that's what he means to be doing, but that's very, very good advice. You need to be, it's a little simplified, because it's obviously not always easy to stop the internal stuff that reinforces your anxiety, but as far as the external stuff, realizing what triggers your anxiety unnecessarily, or what reinforces the anxiety more than even triggers it actually, that's really great advice, for sure. This is probably what you see with a lot of these people, but there's this overlap between how to date women and get women and how to improve yourself as a man. And the how to improve yourself as a man part is sometimes not at all toxic in any way, because obviously that's fantastic. When it comes with a lot of the men are different from women in this way, blah, 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 and if you want to get women, you have to be this. That's a totally different story, but this video seems to focus just on the self-improvement stuff And I haven't heard anything disagreeable yet.
Because you look at results, results come from choices, and choices come from belief systems. So all you really have to do is follow that flow down to the belief system, rewire it to believe that something new that serves you is a better thing to work with, and then you go and start making choices that are aligned with better beliefs to get the better results that you're looking for. Anxiety.
That's perfectly fair. He's sort of like giving his own version of like analyzing negative core beliefs through like cognitive behavioral therapy and like figuring out what your negative core beliefs are so that you can try to change them and have less sort of self-defeating beliefs. We're going to look at his next video and like see sort of how he talks about relationships. Yeah, this is like healthy. Let's see what he says here. Okay, this is about how do you deal with a partner that gives you the silent treatment. So we've just been watching this guy talk about how to deal with social anxiety. And he did a good job. He opened up about his own experience. He gave genuinely good advice about avoiding toxic echo chambers. And he's here now to talk about how to deal with partners that give you the silent treatment. My immediate reaction to that is giving the silent treatment to someone is very toxic. Very toxic. That's passive aggressive in a nutshell. Like the whole idea of silent treatment. Okay, you need space? Totally. You say to your partner, hey, I really need some space. I'm kind of pissed off. Oh, he has chess in the background. Dope. You need space from your partner does something to piss you off. You don't want to be with them. Like, in that moment, you know, you want to step away from them. You're pissed off at them. They fucking angered you. Great. You have every right to feel how you feel. You take space, but you have to communicate it to them. The whole idea of silent treatment is manipulative. It's using it's emotional manipulation. It's saying, I'm going to be silent. I'm not going to tell you how I feel. I'm just going to let you feel that. But if you don't want to talk to your partner, you can do that without giving them the silent treatment. So let's see what he has to say.
What is up, my brothers from another mother and those rational sisters? Got a question here in our quick fire segment I need to get done. He says, I've been watching your videos. Is this a guy? I think it's a guy. Yeah, it's a guy. I've been watching your videos of channel self-improvement. So he broke up with a woman 2 years ago, single mom with daddy issues. Wish I found your channel back then. Cool. So his question is, how do you respond to the silent treatment within a relationship? He goes, she used to do it all the time when she didn't get her own way or didn't like my opinion on something. She wouldn't answer my call or respond to my text messages for days. It caused me really bad anxiety over the year. First of all, stuff like that should not cause you anxiety. That's something you got to work on within yourself.
That's horrible advice. I'm sorry, but like, just right off the bat, that is really, really bad advice. You're dating someone and they ignore your calls for days, and they ignore you when you say something that pisses them off. Not only should that cause you anxiety, but that should make you question the relationship. So this isn't just someone you like met at a bar and hooked up with. Like, this is someone talking about their partner. If your partner is ignoring your calls, like, that should cause you anxiety. That's a healthy form of anxiety. So strike one, buddy.
That's a bad sign. There's something within you that might be offside, broken, maybe some kind of coping mechanism you're using from youth. But I would definitely deal with that if you're feeling anxiety over somebody not responding to you or giving you the silent treatment. I'll talk about her.
But it's your partner ignoring your calls. That's literally like an extremely important function of anxiety, is like just succeeding sort of socially and biologically. Like, your anxiety comes into play because you're threatened. You feel like, oh, my social success is sort of in limbo. Strike one.
I'm really worried that this could happen again in my next relationship. Just want to know the best way to deal with it in my head so I wouldn't stand for the silent treatment again in a relationship. As this person was absolutely trash to use such tactics and get their own way. Let me know, am I right in my thinking? Please offer your advice. Okay, I did a video with this guy, Sean T. Smith.
The Tactical Guide to Women should not be a title of a book. I mean, that's like not even grammatically correct. The Tactical Guide to Chess. The Tactical Guide to Basketball. The Tactical Guide to Streaming. The Tactical Guide to Women just doesn't even like make sense.
Tactical Guide to Women, How Men Can Manage Risk in Dating Advice. He's a clinical psychologist, wrote the book for guys.
I want to look that guy up. Sean T. Smith, YouTube. He probably has a YouTube, right?
We're alone together.
Winston Churchill, and it says be toxic. Oh, I could fucking...
He's a clinical psychologist, wrote the book for guys to help us filter through the high drama, high risk, the big train wreck women, and separate the good ones from the bad, basically. So in the description below, I will link the video. In fact, it should be linked in all the videos going forward now. I've added it to the recommended reading list. And one of the things that came out of reading this book that I made a note on is silent treatment. It's a bad sign. Any woman that plays the silent treatment card has a lack.
Yeah, of course. That's what I was saying. Yes, any woman or man, because men do it a lot, too. Men do it a lot, the silent treatment. Yeah, you're right. It is in the top right. Yeah. We could check that out.
If you have any questions? I'm going to say half of this book is dedicated to filtering the crap women from the good women.
Yikes, bro. Yikes. This is about humans. It's not about women.
What you're describing there, and you mentioned earlier she was a single mom with daddy issues. First of all, single moms are always going to be a struggle. I've done...
Jesus Christ, bro.
Is the women with daddy issues. They don't take a lot of ownership for them. A lot of the times it's tied into borderline personality disorder.
Oh my God, dude. You're just throwing around personality disorders now? Oh my God.
And you can bet that her past experiences and patterns of behavior, they're going to repeat themselves going forward. So you can expect the same sort of thing that might have happened to other guys in the past.
That's sort of strange given the video we just watched where he was giving like relatively good advice about like personal growth and like moving away from like toxic communities. Like he clearly believes that patterns can be changed.
When you become more red pill aware, when you understand female nature,
Oh.
imperatives, their dating strategies, whether it's short-term, long-term,
Oh man, that's so sad.
where they are in their life, if they're a single mom, if they're looking to have kids, what age they are and stuff like that. They tend, I say they and people get upset. You can't paint everybody with the same brush, Rich. You pretty much can, depending on, where they are in their life.
Oh, he almost achieved self-awareness for a second here.
The difference is that red pill men don't want to get screwed. And because they operate with a lens of red pill awareness, they know how to navigate and deal with certain behavior. Something like this, I mean, first of all,
you have a red pill guy writing into you saying he doesn't know how to fucking deal with this behavior, dude.
The first barrier to entry should be single mother with a couple of kids. Taking that serious.
Yo, if you love a woman but she has a child, walk away, bro. Bro, she has a child, bro. You don't, like, how could you love her? She's already given birth, bro. How could you love someone who's already given birth? Like, those just, like, my mind is like, what? She's given birth to a child, and yet you love her? Hey, when I'm on a dating app and someone has a kid, I don't want to date them either. But that's because I don't want to have a kid. I don't want responsibility. I'm not going to pretend like it's a problem with them. It's me not wanting responsibility. It literally says nothing about the other person except that they've had a kid.
And letting your dick decide who you're going to spend time with. You're walking around with your eyes closed and your ears closed, and you're not paying attention to your senses when it comes to...
He hasn't really given very good advice about how to deal with the silent treatment, y'all. His advice has been completely misguided. His first response of like, you shouldn't have anxiety about your partner ignoring you for days is terrible advice, and it's getting off on the completely wrong foot. The whole idea is like, yes, you should be anxious about that and you should address it with them. I don't know why he's never said that. I don't know why he's never said like, if your partner's giving you the silent treatment, you should address it with them. How has he not said that in 7.5 minutes?
But navigate better, and you'll have better experience with women going forward. Make better choices.
Come on, bro. You literally didn't give any advice about how to deal with a partner that gives you the silent treatment. You fucking didn't, dude. And okay, he made the point that giving the silent treatment is emotionally immature. Cool. But how do you deal with that? Why have you not said you should talk about it with your partner when they're giving you the silent treatment? What, am I missing something, or has that not been said the entire fucking video?
You'll get better results, right? Your belief system governs the choices you make every day, the choices your brain makes every day, which will govern the results that you get. You want better results? Make better choices by having a better belief system that understands how to navigate the world with women and red pill awareness. Hope this video helps. Smash the like button.
Oh my god. Okay. Yeah, he didn't go into how to deal with someone who's giving you the silent treatment. He really didn't. He doesn't seem to have the skills to talk about like how to actually approach those confrontations and have like healthy interpersonal interactions that will resolve those conflicts. So he just talked about avoiding the types of partners that he thinks would be more likely to do that. This whole idea of like telling people what types of partners to look out for, it's pretty strange when you stop to think about it. And beyond being strange, it's actually really insulting. Like to tell someone, not just like, oh, don't date single mothers, because that's obviously insulting about the single mothers. Like what, you think they're all the same and so on? But like, you're telling someone to date people who are like this, or marry people who are like this, date people who are like that, marry people who are like that. You're implying that they can't make those judgments themselves. And I don't think that's helpful. And I think it stunts people's development. I think you want to communicate to people that you trust them to make those decisions for themselves and really just instead give them the tools to resolve conflicts when they come up. If you give people the tools, you know, if you explain how to go through resolving conflict or dealing with issues when they come up in relationships, you can help them set the boundaries and make their own determinations of when their partner is someone they want to date and when they're not. It seems very strange because it seems like you're doubting your viewers' ability to make judgments on their own. So anyways, let's watch this. This is this guy that we've been watching, Richard Cooper, and this is Sean T. Smith, Side D. So we're gonna see them talk. I do think that the average people who seriously watch these kind of videos can't make those decisions themselves, though, and he's capitalizing on that. I think people can do more than they think they can do and can do more than they have done. And so like you want to empower your viewers to be better than they are and more able to view the world in a helpful way. And you want to believe that people can grow and change. So I feel like it sort of stunts people, keeps them where they are. Maybe some people do. No, you're definitely right that some people have a really poor barometer. And when he says people are thinking with their penis, he's, you know, pointing out that people aren't able to get beyond sexual attraction, or really like men aren't really taught to like think about emotions, think about relationships, dynamics. All right, let's check this out. It's the theme of the night. We're going to watch this last video with this psychological guy.
My brothers, you've all heard the phrase, she was a nightmare dressed as a daydream. You know, the thing
I have never heard that phrase.
about bad experiences with women is hindsight's always 20/20.
Is it out of sync? Because it's the Zoom call that he's on?
And a lot of guys still don't learn from those experiences. So the reason why I hopped on a call with Sean to do the Skype interview is this book is really good. The Tactical Guide to Women, it's called How Men Can Manage Risk in Dating and Marriage. And it really helps you do things like identify good women of low drama.
What about gay women? Why is this book not for gay women? Can anyone tell me?
Hope you enjoy this. All right, what is up, my brothers from another mother?
Wait, was that the edit?
From Amazon, you can buy it today. It just became available. Hope you enjoy this. All right, what is... I'm on today with Sean Smith, who's a clinical psychologist from Denver, Colorado, and he was cool enough to send me a pre-release copy of his book titled The Tactical Guide to Women, How Men Can Manage Risk in Dating and...
The coolest thing about my video about Andrew Tate was, I think it became very clear that Andrew Tate is a very unhappy man. It seemed very clear, and I think that's important to show that these philosophies don't make you happy. Rich Cooper does not strike me as unhappy. He seems pretty happy, to be fair. This guy immediately, without hearing a word out of his mouth, looks unhappy.
In the description below, I'll link to the book if you want to grab a copy off Amazon. It just went live today. In fairness, I've gone through about half of the book. I loved it, and I reached out to Sean after he sent it to me and asked him to do an interview so I can share it with you guys. So this is a bit of a book review. What I've asked him to do is kind of give us a bit of a background story.
Can Sean hear him? Why is he acting like he can't hear him?
Because from what I gathered from the book, your clinical
Maybe reacting is like a feminine trait or something.
psychologists deal with a lot of relationship stuff, marriage counseling, relationship counseling. I know from what I've gathered in here, you've dealt with a lot of people post-divorce, and kind of understanding why they end up with these difficult scenarios that they choose to fight through, and maybe reasons why you may not want to do it. You can.
I mean, yeah, if that was my book that was being talked about, I would be like smiling and nodding a fair bit. Yeah.
Like, let's be more conscious about choosing the right partner if you're going to bring them into your life on a longer term basis. So, Sean, origin story. Why did you write this book?
Well, this book started probably 40 years ago. I grew up in my father's bar, and that set me on my course in a lot of ways. It got me interested in psychology. But one of the experiences I had there was looking around these adults around me and seeing these horrible relationship decisions they were making. And I didn't really understand it, but I knew that I would see guys crying into their beer at midnight over these women who had, just devastated them. And I vowed at a pretty early age that I was not going to get into the wrong relationship and have my life ruined. And more importantly, I learned pretty quickly that I can learn from other people's mistakes. And so I've been gathering people's mistakes for 40 years now. And yeah, I'm a psychologist. So that's my origin story. But the origin story for the book, there's really hundreds of origin stories for this book. And there's one in particular. There's a guy named Dave. He was in his mid-30s, and
I fucking hate when therapists do this. First of all, I hope that's not the client's real name. Talking about someone's experience really rubs me the wrong way. I don't know, it's not always unethical. It's not like you're breaking confidentiality, but I always think, like, would you want the client to hear that? Or would they feel like you're exploiting their experience? Even like writing a book about my client's experience, I don't know. I don't know if I could ever do it. Like, the experience, if you don't break confidentiality and you don't use any identifying information, which is not just their name and address, but like specific enough information, you might technically be able to use their stories, but I find it very unethical. And if I was writing a book, like, you want to be able to use your experience to be able to share with people. But like, if I was writing a book, I would keep it so general that even the client couldn't tell that I was talking about them, because it just feels so exploitative. I would fucking hate my therapist if they wrote a book with specific details about my life, even if it wasn't identifiable. I'd say, fuck you. I didn't try to give you fodder for your book.
He had done very well for himself. He'd set up this business that sort of operated on its own, and it maintained him. And he was never going to be rich off of this business, but he was probably always going to be comfortable. And so he decided that it was time to bring a woman into his life, because that had always been very important to him, and he dated around a little bit. He personally had not had the best role model, so he was sort of in a handicap in choosing the right woman. But he met Lisa, and they were like peas and carrots right off the bat. And so within 6 months, he made this.
So this guy works in Denver, Colorado. It says on his website. If you know a couple, Dave and Lisa, and the details fit, you fucking know who he's talking about. I don't know.
Mistake that so many guys make. He moved her into his house without, 6 months is not enough time. And actually,
I agree. Yeah, you shouldn't move in with your partner before 6 months. Yeah, moving in with your partner too quick is a mistake I've made before, actually twice. And I won't make it again. It's just, you really have to think about it. It's not about the quantity of time precisely. It's not like you can say there's a specific amount of time. But you have to feel like it's the right time for your relationship to move in together, and not be doing it just for like practical concerns, rent, blah, blah, blah.
I want to come back to that number later. Mm-hmm. And within 9 months, because she had been sort of struggling with her professional life, he was helping her get started in a business similar to his. And so at 9 months already with this woman that he didn't know very well, he had his house mingled with her, and he had his business mingled with her, because she had sort of gotten some tendrils into his profession.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, women have tendrils, apparently.
Life.
Smart woman.
Yeah, well.
Women be tendrils.
He, after a year or so, around the year mark, he started to notice some things about her that were kind of disconcerting. He started to notice that, number one, she'd been a little dishonest about, or left out some details about how her previous relationships had ended. And it turns out that some of them had ended very contentiously. Mm-hmm. And she'd not been on the planet that long, but she'd had a lot of conflict in her past relationships. Mm-hmm. He also noticed that there was this weird dynamic with her, where she would treat him as just her savior for when she was in love with him. But then at, the drop,
Captain Save-A-Ho?
Well,
Jesus.
I use that term. You don't have to use it if you don't want to.
I like that you just can't hear the guy when he's talking over. You hate the implication of a smart woman as if it's a woman's natural state to steal and manipulate. That's exactly what he's implying. He's saying, oh, I almost respect her for doing, for being conniving in that way. So, yeah, good for her. He's like, he doesn't really think it's good for her, but he's saying, like, that is intelligence for a woman, is to manipulate, which is, obviously misogynistic.
Two different things we're talking about here. Yeah, there was that white knight, Captain Save-A-Ho mentality that he had, but also he noticed that he was the good
If you ever catch a clinical psychologist saying Captain Save-A-Ho,
guy until he was not. Like, she would turn on a dime and then he was the devil. And so she would get very angry at him. She was inconsolable, and she started also to get kind of violent with him. And
this is more and more information. It's not necessarily like identifying information, so I don't know that he's breaking confidentiality, but it's well beyond the line of like what I would consider ethical. I would never share this much information about my clients in my book or in an interview. It's very exploitative. They did not give him this information so he could share it with this fucking guy on YouTube. I do think, Dave and Lisa, like, they're common names, but how many couples are Dave and Lisa in Denver?
I don't care what you hear, the statistics say that violence from women, women are every bit as violent as men in relationships.
It's true.
They do it a little differently, but they are just as violent. So anyway.
Yeah, but it affects men way differently, and it's way less of a social problem. It's still a huge problem that needs addressing, but don't act like it's fucking balanced. It's completely asymmetrical. These are the same people who would be like, there are physical differences between men and women. Men are stronger than women. But also physical abuse is an equal problem between both. It's like, what? And I'm not trying to downplay physical violence against men. It's obviously a problem. I would never downplay that. They could be cover names, but he should have said that they were cover names. You might as well say that if they're cover names.
After, 15, 16 months, he started to try to extricate himself from the relationship. And he started talking about breaking up and going separate ways. Well, you can imagine she didn't take this very well.
This is a lot of time to be talking about one couple. I thought we weren't going to make it through this 20-minute video, but it's flying by kind of.
And her safety. And so she got very angry. She started getting even more violent when she was angry. And he realized that he had to get out of this relationship. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, she decided to follow her pattern, which was to get legally contentious about this. Now, mind you, they weren't married. They didn't have kids. They probably weren't even common law married, which differs from one municipality to another. But
right.
There was no legal contract there. But regardless, she drew him into a legal battle that he had to defend himself from. And so he had to weigh the cost.
Sorry, what was the legal battle? He didn't explain. What was the legal battle?
And the benefits of various options. And it turned out that the cheapest way for him to get rid of her was to liquidate his business. He didn't walk away with it.
Sorry, literally, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? What was the legal battle?
There was no legal contract there, but regardless, she drew him into a legal battle that he had to defend himself from. And
in what regard? You've given so much detail and you can't even say what the fuck the legal battle was. That is a gaping hole in the story. What was the legal battle if they weren't married and there was no kids? What could he possibly be talking about?
Nothing, but he had to start over. And the reason I choose this origin story for this book is because it's an illustration.
We can be sure that the information is not being withheld for privacy reasons. Because no matter what it is, he could find a way to share it that's perfectly, justified given his standard for what's justified to share. I was gonna say him physically abusing her, but why would that make him liquidate his business? How could she possibly break up with someone she's not even married to and he would have to liquidate his business? I'm sorry, you talk for 4 minutes about a couple and you leave a gaping hole in the story?
Having the wrong woman in your life, you don't have to marry her to have your plans devastated.
That's just a gaping hole in the fucking story.
Yeah, so that was actually one of the early passages I highlighted in this book. I was just looking for it as you're wrapping up the origin there. But I've said before in my videos, and almost in the first 10 minutes of me reading the book, you echoed it right away. There's nothing that can devastate a man's life more than choosing the wrong partner. And I'm going to use my terms because I know that you're the clinical psychologist and you're going to use more specific terms that are going to relate to, your study and your learning. But guys are dumb. We think with our dicks and we don't place enough value and enough attention to.
I guess he's staring blankly because he doesn't want to nod along with this idea that guys think with their dicks. I guess even that might be beneath him. But he looks profoundly unhappy. Sorry, Andrew Tate is driving by.
If you're followers don't read the whole book, at least get these 3 things because these are really important. The first one is don't shack up to test the relationship. And there's a couple of reasons this is important. Number one, that advice is out there. It's floating around on the internet that in order to know if a woman is safe to partner with, that you should move in with her and see how things go.
Oh, really? That's common advice that you need to debunk as a clinical psychologist? That's like common advice that you should move in with someone to find out if you get along with them well? Yeah, I don't know. I've never heard that advice. I mean, I've heard the advice that you should move in with someone before you get married, which is definitely good advice.
The research says that there's a couple problems with that. Number one, that moving in to test a relationship actually damages the outcome. So shacking up in itself is not a bad thing. If it's part of a larger plan and you two have decided that you're the right thing for each other and this is just one step in the larger journey, then the living together.
There's like a technical issue where the slightest audio from Rich completely cuts out this Sean guy's audio. So he's like trying to open a bottle and it just completely cuts out.
You're the right thing for each other and this is just one step in the larger journey, then the living together outside of some agreement doesn't really have an effect on the outcome. But if you're
my God, that is so fucking funny, yo.
Now, the women and men do this for different reasons. There was a study out of Australia that asked men and women, why did you shack up? And men their answer was typically to test the relationship. Women's answer was typically out of convenience. So, and the most common.
Wonder if that has anything to do with like gender pay gap or like structural issues that make it harder for women to succeed in our society in certain ways. Or I wonder if it's just bad research. I don't know. He didn't cite it. I'm going to guess it's not in the description. This video is not to be reproduced without prior authorization. This is fair use, Rich. This is fair use.
You know, it's only a matter of time before any of these bad behaviors that you're talking about in the book that are signals and signs to guys that she might be a massive nightmare later on down the road. You'll see them. You don't need to live with somebody to see that. I mean, all you'll see when you live.
I mean, the reason I liked the first video we watched with this guy is because he was teaching men how not to be a massive nightmare themselves. That's like the only good part of the red pill movement, is the self-improvement stuff that teaches men how not to be a massive nightmare themselves. All this other stuff is just completely unhelpful.
What would you say is a reasonable period of time for that, any bad signals or signs that you talk about in this book to show up? I mean, is it 3 months? Is it 6 months?
I'd say try not to move in with someone before a year. I mean, you really do see how someone responds to life events and stuff. It is pretty important to obviously gender is not a factor in this. It's just, you want to see how someone responds to life. How do they care about their family? How do they care about their friends? How do they respond to things? When you move in together, it just creates a lot more attachments. It's harder to stop. I've moved in with people. One time I had a partner move in with me, and then when we broke up, it wasn't so hard for me because they just moved out, and then it was okay, whatever. The other time, I moved in with a partner together to an apartment, and we broke up really quick. And it was a nightmare. We had to break the lease. We had to, spend a bunch of money. It really made it hard for us to see each other in positive ways because it was just so much more stressful. And my whole thing is to, break it away from the time arbitrariness, to just say do it when you really feel like it's right for your relationship. And obviously not to test things out, as this guy's saying, but to because it's going to bring you closer together and make you love each other more, not just for practical reasons.
This honeymoon phase lasts anywhere from 9 to 18 months, and that's where your baseline neurology or neuropsychology, your neurochemistry has deviated from the baseline. And it's hard to pin down, but there have been studies that say people start to come back to normal anywhere between 9 and 18 months. So my thought is give it at least a year. You should be in that courtship phase.
Yeah, so I agree.
Got it. Okay. Point number 2.
Don't slide. Meaning, in my hometown, in my alma mater.
Don't slide?
actually work on my doctorate, there's some researchers that are looking at how people slide into relationships, meaning they unintentionally end up in basically a married state. And guys have to be very careful about this because we think differently than women. And one of the very sweet things about women is that when they decide we're the guy, they kind of want to get things moving. And you can't blame them for that. But we have to be very careful about, don't get the puppy together. Don't get don't start going to IKEA and buying furniture. Don't have her tampons under your sink unless you are in that committed state. And guys make this really dangerous error.
Yo, if you're sleeping with someone and they want to keep tampons at your house, what the fuck is the problem with that? Jesus Christ, insecurity.
Where they're in a no man's land between, are they the boyfriend or the husband or the fiance or the life partner? Be very clear. I suggest 3 categories in this book. You are her boyfriend, or you are her fiance / intended, whatever you want to call it, or you are her husband or partner, whatever you want to call it. Be very careful about those in-between states and be very intentional.
Wait, what would the possible in-between states? Those are like kind of the only states I could think of. What are the in-between states between boyfriend, fiance, and like husband? Like fuckboy? Boyfriend, fiance? I guess, okay, yeah. He's saying like the transition from boyfriend to fiance, you don't want to make that transition unintentionally. Yeah, you don't want to end up being more attached than you intend to be. Sure, of course. You want to be intentional about relationships. It has nothing to do with your partner's tampons being at your house. It's like how you talk about your life. If you say, like, this is real advice. Like, if you're dating someone and you love them, that's great. But if you say to them, whether you're having sex or just lying down together or whatever, if you say to them, I could never see my life without you, you are implying that you are ready to go into the fiancé marriage state. And that's irresponsible if you're not prepared to follow up on that. And you shouldn't just say it out of emotions and hormones. You should say it when you really mean it. So I think people should be really careful about promises and, language and how they use it. To some people, just saying I love you might mean that. And sometimes you have to clarify that. It's the hardest part of relationships is defining them and being on the same page. It's hard, but like with emotional maturity, you can communicate it. But yeah, it's not about like if their tampons are at your house. It's how you talk about the relationship.
Make her earn, just like she should make you earn. Make her earn that status from going from boyfriend to...
I nodded because he said, just like she should make you earn. Like, yes, finally you're talking about that. Yeah, absolutely. It's mutual. All of this is mutual.
When you said slide into a relationship, I thought immediately, slide into something like, slide into the DMs, how people slide into your DMs at Instagram and they start, talking to you behind the scene. It just automatically happens. They kind of like, it's like gravity. They kind of suck up your time with their conscious and unconscious, this and that. And I see it happen to guys all the time. It's like, and then we started living together. I'm like, well, how did that happen? Well, I don't know. It just happened, slowly stuff just kind of moved,
Yeah, when you said slide, I thought about how men slide into women's DMs, which is a completely intentional act and totally not what you were talking about, because that's an intentional act that a man is doing, and you were talking about unintentionally, but it's the same word.
Avoiding, we'll ignore the common denominator. So if we have a series of broken relationships and there's a pattern there, it's very easy for any human being to say, well, it's everybody else's fault. All of my landlords have been dicks. All of my ex-girlfriends have been terrible. All of my bosses have been unreasonable. Well, if you find yourself saying things like that, then you need to look inward because there's a good chance that you are the common denominator.
I mean, sure, I get what he's saying. Yeah, people need to self-reflect, but landlords and bosses are often dicks.
Or her coping skills. How is her mental health? I have a whole section on mental health.
And of course you should be considering how your partner's mental health is and their coping skills. Of course, just like you would yourself.
In the book, because if you're going to be on the dating scene, you need to know what depression and anxiety look like. You need to know what substance abuse looks like. You need to know definitely to know what personality disorders look like. Yeah.
Can we talk about the personality disorders for...
Oh, this is going to be good.
For just a little bit. I wanted to keep it under about 20 minutes, but that's a question that comes up a lot of the time from guys asking me to do videos on like BPD or how do you
spot.
I
fucking bet, because everybody thinks everybody has BPD because it's completely overly talked about and mis-talked about, and I'm sure we're going to see more of that right now. And they're not going to talk about men with BPD, or maybe they will. I don't know.
Narcissism and things like that. And I've read books on it, but I'd rather defer to somebody that's an expert that's clinically trained on it. So, can you give us a couple of personality disorders that are pretty obvious to you, but most guys don't notice when they come into you for counseling?
I think one of the ones that's most obvious to somebody who's gone through the trenches and paid their dues like I have is that borderline personality disorder. It's a very difficult one to detect, and even when I started working as a psychologist, I got taken in and didn't detect some people who had this disorder.
Yeah, no shit. You don't just know everything when you start working in your profession.
And the reason it's so hard to detect is that it feels great at first. I mean, these people are charming, they're great in the bedroom, they make you feel like you're just the king of the world, but then things flip and suddenly you're kind of
Did he just say BPD people are great in the bedroom?
reeling and going, oh my God, what the hell just happened? So, and there are other personality disorders that are sort of on that high end of the spectrum.
If I ever fuck someone and they're really good at sex, I'm going to be like, sorry, you have BPD.
Like narcissistic personality disorders that people start off in their relationships great. They're charismatic and they make you feel good, and that makes it very difficult to detect what's really happening. And
So tell us how to detect it, mister.
so I guess my advice is that when you're meeting somebody for the first time and you get this overwhelmingly good feeling from them, you got to slow down and ask. It could be that they're just wonderful people and they're the perfect fit for you, but it could be that there's something else going on that you really need to attend to.
Oh, please tell me that's not the end of what he's going to say.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So your advice on how to detect it is just by talking about the good things about it? Do you even know anything about BPD or narcissistic personality disorder? It's a weird premise to say, hey, how do I tell if the person I'm dating has personality disorders? That's a weird premise. You shouldn't think about it that way. You should just think about how they're treating you and what type of behavior you like and don't like. You shouldn't have to diagnose your partner. But you got a clinical psychologist on. He's going to talk about, how to tell all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. He didn't say anything about how to. He said when they're treating you really good, when they're good in the bedroom, when they're charismatic. Bro, that is not helpful. Talk about the downsides at least. Talk about the symptoms. Talk about the criteria for diagnosing BPD.
One of the things that I've started to track and I've noticed is borderline personality seems to tie into abandonment issues, and the
Fear of abandonment is one of the criteria for BPD. I actually have BPD marked because I was just looking at it the other day. The diagnostic criteria for BPD, and BPD doesn't make someone a bad person, it doesn't make them a bad partner. It's a pervasive pattern of instability of interpersonal relationships. So that's something they have to work on. Obviously that can create issues, but it doesn't automatically make someone a bad partner, especially because people can have diagnoses and be working on them. It can be treated. And BPD is treatable, 100%. The research shows that. Pervasive pattern of instability in interpersonal relationships, self-image and affects, and marked impulsivity beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts, as indicated by 5 or more of the following: frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment. So frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment is the first criteria of BPD. So it's like, cool, man, you noticed that people tend to have abandonment issues? Yes, so did, the thousands of psychologists who wrote the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual and created the diagnosis. Last criteria must be good in bed.
personality seems to tie into abandonment issues.
Bro, I know he's not a psychologist, but it seems to tie into abandonment issues. That's the criteria for the fucking diagnosis, dude.
One of the things that I've started to track.
That's like being what I've started to track is that ADHD seems to tie in with difficulty focusing.
And these women seem to have a bad relationship with their fathers. Do you have
That's absurd and unnecessary to throw that around.
any thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's typically with borderline personality disorder a history of trauma and a lot of times abuse, and there has to be also an internal predisposition for it, because there are plenty of people who go through bad times and don't end up with
Yeah, I mean, that's true. There's as far as my understanding of the research I've looked at shows, there's genetic aspects of it. It's not necessarily a genetic, but there's a lot of mental health issues. There's genetic aspects. There's absolutely environmental aspects from your childhood. Trauma can certainly affect it.
Yeah, there's a strong correlation between family trauma and horrible childhoods and growing up to have this way of interacting with the world.
So what are we supposed to do with that information? Because that's true of so many mental health issues. Of course, yeah, having difficult so you're dating someone and they have a difficult childhood they tell you about, and you're like, now I got to be on the lookout for BPD. It's like, just tell us about the behaviors, how someone treats their partner if they're, struggling with untreated BPD or something like that.
So there it is again, the Tactical Guide to Women. It's available on Amazon. I'll link it below in the description. You can grab a copy. I know it just went live today. It's September 1st. I guess I'll release this later on today so everybody can see it immediately and hopefully grab a copy for you. Sean,
you're not going to nod or smile or say thank you or something? Like, dude, are you okay? Besides the material effects, which don't care about intention, what do you think leads a professional psychologist to go this pathway? Disappointment with the answers, nuances they found in their career. That's a great question, Jock. I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's probably had these beliefs for a very long time. His initial comment was he grew up in a bar, seeing people's relationships, and he made sense of it as a child would, and he maybe, I don't know, other influences, the people in the bar, his dad, people influenced him to view relationships in maybe a bit more black and white way than I would think is healthy. In general, though, I would not think that a psychologist who's got a neutral, sort of well-informed, nuanced perspective of people would suddenly go down the red pill path. It's possible, for sure. But I would assume that he's probably had these beliefs for a long time, and then like everyone, needed to figure out what to do for money, what to do for a job, and he probably is interested in psychology. Red pill people, they have an interest in psychology, and that's why they can be taken advantage of by someone who has the degree and stuff. But they want to understand people better, but often they don't have the energy to really understand the nuance and the subtlety. So I'm sure he has a very genuine very genuine motivation to understand psychology and how people think, as most people do. We all want to understand how people work. It's sort of like they're separate, but they inform each other, and then he wants to get a better psychological understanding to maybe inform his experiences, but not. I'm sure he has a significant confirmation bias. I assume confirmation, and we all do, but I assume confirmation bias is a big thing. You grow up with your sort of views, and then you use the aspects of psychology that might inform it and ignore the other aspects. So great question, Jock.
I want to thank you for your time. I've really enjoyed reading as much of the book as I have, and I've gotten a ton of value out of it. So thanks for sending it to me, guys. I hope this is useful to you. A lot of you have asked me how to properly vet women.
How to properly vet women? How to properly vet women? How do they make you feel? How does the relationship make you feel? It's not about vetting a woman. It's about understanding your own emotional reaction to interpersonal dynamics. It's not, it's objectifying. I'm sure they do all kinds of other forms of objectification, these people and what they think and what they talk about. But what I would focus on is this objectification is the problems in the relationship are always focused around the woman. And I'm sure they find ways to talk about the man. They did a few times here, and I called it out. I said, that's great. But this form of objectification is focusing on the woman as, and obviously it's all heteronormative, which sort of explodes the whole concept, but focusing on the woman as the locus of the issues in the relationship, when men really, heterosexual men really just need to understand themselves better. How does their partner make them feel? How do they make their decisions? It doesn't have to be based in this overgeneralization of gender and traditional gender roles that sort of mask as unplugging from the matrix. And I'm sorry, but I'll say it again. He doesn't look happy. He doesn't look happy. He's fucking promoting his new book, and he doesn't look excited or happy.
This is a pretty good guide. I'd highly recommend checking it out. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you, Rich.
All right. Peace, brothers.
So, should we see what some of the comments say? Okay, let's go to the new ones. I don't want to see all the excited people. I'm just trying to see anything that I might find interesting. Yeah, there are just a lot of men who are wolves and sheep. There are a lot of men who are just looking for meaning. Wow. Is this related to the book Women, A Tactical Report on Hypergamy and Hunting, written by the Illuminati? Jesus Christ. Imagine disliking these videos. I don't have to imagine it. I'm just looking for one critical comment. What's up with the volume? Yeah. Is it, this is interesting. Is it normal since going red pill I have zero tolerance for female BS? I see an attractive female, Then when she opens her mouth and I hear the BS, I instantly switch off and lose interest straight away. That's a very interesting and worthwhile comment for us to consider, because it shows that this stuff does not make someone happy or help them in relationships. What is this BS that you're hearing immediately as someone starts talking and it's shutting down your ability to relate to them? Sure, I'll say, like, I'm pretty picky as far as someone I would want to date romantically. I'm very picky. I've been in love several times. I'm not, like, desperate to meet someone. I'm very comfortable being alone. So I'm very picky. Personality-wise, attractiveness, we all care about attractiveness, but personality-wise especially. And it does take a long time to really know if you genuinely jive with someone. So, like, if someone starts talking to me, I could probably start picking up on whether we're going to be a good match. But I'm not picking up on their BS necessarily. And it just feels like these people put themselves in cages and chains. What is this? Do you not understand that there are just as many deadbeat loser guys that women are taking care of and who are financially destroyed by men? The fact that you're making this a gender issue is ignorant. 100%! The philosophy you are espousing is enabling men to stop looking at their own roles in relationships. Gina Manning! Gina Manning! Swoosh! Gina Manning! Let's fucking go! Can I get a Gina Manning in the chat? Like, this is so sad, y'all. That's so sad. I used to date a model with clinical depression and anxiety. Take it from me, run. Doesn't matter how hot she is or what she brings to the table. Fucking run. That's all I gotta say. You do realize depression and anxiety are treatable. Like, people get better from those things. So maybe you didn't really love that person. I mean, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Depression and anxiety can cause enormous problems in relationships. And so it really is important for people to work on themselves before or certainly as they're in relationships. You can't let your own personal problems fuck up your relationship. That's how a lot of relationships get messed up. If I was this guy with his experiences, I would comment, I dated a model who was struggling with depression and anxiety. I was really physically attracted to her, but her mental health issues took a huge toll on our relationship, and we weren't able to make it work. In the future, maybe I would consider not dating someone if they were not at a really good point in working on their mental health. Bro, do drink into the microphone. Oh my God, fuck that, hire a hitman? Bro. Okay, I should stop this, right? Oh no! Oh no! What? What? So literally they're saying if Jews have gotten kicked out of a bunch of different countries, then they're the problem. Interesting to see some anti-Semitism in the comments. Not surprising. Anti-Semitism, I was thinking about a lot today because I saw this Russia Today article that was about Russia, sort of banning Israel from doing something in their country. I didn't read the article. I just looked at the comments on Twitter. All anti-Semitic people. Very openly anti-Semitic people. Saying things that you couldn't even report them necessarily because it's in context it's anti-Semitic, but on its own, they're not saying fuck the Jews. But they're all good. They're all saying good, kick the Jews out. And they're saying 110 because Jews apparently have been kicked out of 109 countries. I didn't even know this anti-Semitic sort of thing, so people say 110. But I was thinking about why anti-Semitism is so sort of common, because it really is super common. And this is not the be-all, end-all of why anti-Semitism is common, but a lot of people don't know Jews. A lot of people don't live near Jews. A lot of people just it's easy to hate Jews because it doesn't have any effect on your life. It's not like it makes it harder to go throughout your day. It can help you explain problems with capitalism when you don't understand how systems work. You can just say, well, the Rothschilds and George Soros. And it's very interesting to see anti-Semitism overlap here with misogyny and sort of overgeneralized, unhelpful ways of viewing the world. Because it shows that people need to objectify a target population to explain their problems. So yeah, thank you, Zombie Ripper, for your anti-Semitism. One last thing I want to say about this stuff, and I think about this a lot as I have a YouTube channel and a platform. I think, and I moderate the platform, there are comments I just don't want to tolerate. And stuff that I just think, oh, that's not what I want. And I think about what I want to say in my videos. And, I go out of my way to make my political views and social views very clear. Not in every video, but I do in general. What I think about a lot, and I think this could help other content creators to think about, is like, there are so many people in the world that could watch your content, and you get to sort of choose what type of people they are. Like, there will, unfortunately, be audiences for these guys' types of content for the foreseeable future, if not forever. There will be many, many people who enjoy this content, some of them anti-Semitic, some of them misogynist, bigoted in whatever ways. I can't change that. This guy's audience, he has 500,000 subs. His audience is way bigger than mine. It might always be bigger than mine. But what really I always go to is like, I get to choose who I want to hang out with, what community I want, what reputation I want, how I want to be known. I guess what I'm trying to say to boil it down is like, there will always be people who say based. And I want the people who say based about me to be people I respect. I couldn't go to sleep at night and feel good about myself if the people who were saying based about me were anti-Semitic or bigoted or misogynist or just fucking unable to understand the world. And so I guess you could just keep elevating your life by acting right, living right, being true to who you are, living your principles, expressing yourself, being yourself. And it doesn't matter that other people can have huge audiences, because you can always be how you want. I guess what I'm talking about is the difference between quality and quantity. You really want to focus on quality. What quality of people do you want in your audience? What qualities of your audience do you want? I see huge content creators, and the people in their mentions on Twitter are dirtbags and assholes. And I just think this doesn't even have to make me mad, because I know I'll never have to deal with that. Because every step along the way, I know that what I'm doing is right, and I'm doing my best, and I'm progressive in a way that's not just a word, but like I care about learning more and understanding the world in a way that's based in empathy and not just sort of like traditional misunderstandings of human nature. So maybe that's a good summary to sort of end it with, to say it's really a beautiful thing in a way to be able to sculpt your presence. And this has nothing to do with online, really. It's in life in general. These guys, they make videos, they talk about boundaries so much without really helping people assert healthy boundaries. Because you can't just stop interacting with people who have mental health disorders, BPD or whatever. Like, okay, it can be someone you're dating, but what if it's someone in your family? Like, how do you interact with them? Or what if it's a close friend? Or what if it's someone you're dating, but they're working on it? At what point do you feel like your boundaries are being crossed? How do you assert it? And I just think it's really healthy to have your own boundaries and live your life in a way that you feel proud of. But it doesn't have to be in a way that pulls other people down.